The question here being, what are the most significant effects that coronavirus has had on your ministry or just the work that you do? We think it's valuable to talk about and see how maybe VR and virtual and remote meeting be a solution. But what about the most significant effects?
Yeah, no, this is an exciting time for innovation. Obviously, it's a devastating time in the world as we're trying to figure out this reality. But let me first answer from my role in Faith Tech, right? So Faith Tech is a ministry where we gather people primarily city-oriented. So Faith Tech will establish itself in city environments, find leadership, and bring people physically together. And so coronavirus has been kind of a huge disruption to that because there's a certain muscle to gathering people in physical spaces, right? And when you have to move virtually to do that, it's entirely different. And so Paytex had to pivot pretty quickly to help our city leaders understand like how to build virtual community and continue to engage the people that the Lord's put them in front of to pastor and steward. And so that's been a really good thing to do. And I think we've even expanded to some global ministry aspects where we are having pure digital online in addition to our city-led stuff. But everything's relational driven, right? And so no matter if you're in person or in a space like this, you know, what makes the difference there is that it is relational first and foremost. And so that was, you know, what we had found at the church too when I was on staff at the church, which is everything that we did had to be relational. And so when you talk about scale, the only thing we're scaling is relations. And so that's going to come down to every single person having the ability to have more relations. And so the medium that it takes to do that is anything and everything, right? So do what it takes to engage with people. And that's why I so love what like folks like DJ are doing to engage people where they are in VR. And there's other gaming ministries, like those are the things to do. And so I think right now it's an exciting time because the quote unquote business model of the church is disrupted, where when I was on staff at the church trying to disrupt prior to the need to disrupt, it was fine to have them both in tandem, right? Where we had the traditional church service and then I could be off on the side doing quote unquote, you know, innovation stuff. But now every church in the world is trying to figure out, oh, shoot, we all need to think about this differently. And what are those fundamentals, right? I think that's where we all need to, as believers, come back to is like fundamentals of our faith, right? Love God, love your neighbor, make disciples. None of that says make a building, ask for tithes. Like there's the fundamentals around that will change. We have to remember we're all part of this like ancient, unchanging belief system that is rooted in all of time, but the methods of it are always going to change. And so we have to be flexible and we have to continue to change those methods in order to do the most fundamental, which is reach out to our colleagues and our friends, whatever that looks like in whatever the medium. So I'm super excited about this season because, as was mentioned previously in all of our stories, like the embodiments that we have in this space makes me feel way more connected to these folks than if I look at all of you on a grid of 40 people on a 2D surface. I don't necessarily have sort of that same embodiment. And so all 2D surfaces are an extrapolation of something else you're trying to do. And so as this advances, we're getting closer and closer to like full embodiment. So I think this is that opportunity to explore and understand, like, okay, how do we do these embodied relationships a little more? So, yeah. Sit with us, Leo.
Awesome. Completely agree. DJ.
So it's been a fascinating journey. At a technical level, logistical level, nothing's really changed at VR Church because we don't have a physical location. So to that degree, things just always remain the same. At a relational level, we've certainly seen a massive spike in attendance. People looking for an online community. You know, some churches, went to a broadcast model. There's actually many churches I found out that really didn't do anything. They're just closing up and saying, we'll see you after this is over. And so like at Easter, we had a lady from the UK visit and said, I didn't have an Easter service to go to, but I found VR Church Easter, and she was really excited to be there. So it's been interesting to watch from that, just to see this significant growth. And we were already kind of like in an upward trajectory, and then COVID just kind of like put, gasoline on the fire, so to speak. The other thing I think was fascinating to watch for us is because we've always been kind of I guess maybe in a kind way, an enigma in the theological world. What do we do with this? And so there's been all type of conversations, good, bad, and ugly, around VR Church. And so what I've noticed was pre-COVID, it was, we had this theological construct that generally recognized, and I'm not representing everyone here, I'm just a very generic thing that, you can't have an online-only church. You can't have real relationships, all these things. And now in this COVID era, it was fascinating to watch theology change in real time. And which is interesting because you would think that our theology would fashion or shape our experience. But what I noticed was the experience of what was happening was shaping our theology. And I don't even know what to say about that. I'm just bookmarking that in my mind. And maybe that's a whole other, question for someday to kind of, extrapolate. But it's been fascinating to watch. And so even like churches in, my area, good churches, by the way, that, didn't do anything online, certainly wouldn't say you could have church or relationships online. And now they're like, come to church online, right? So in a matter of 2 weeks, that whole thing changed. I had a buddy just this week, he was telling me about, he does online ministry. That's all, not VR, but just online ministry, really is a champion and pioneer for that. And he was trying to encourage a church in Miami about online ministry. And the pastor's like, you are committing sin. You're separating the bride from Christ. And guess who called him during the COVID time, right? We need to get online. And so anyways, it's been fascinating for VR Church to watch, our growth, but also the conversation has changed, and just kind of like keeping an eye on that and really thinking through that. And it's been good at the end of the day. I know it seems kind of negative the way I'm talking about it, but at the end of the day, it's very, very good and very, very positive. So.
Nice.
Yeah.
Completely agree. Awesome.
Yeah, well, on my area, since I'm not doing as much direct VR ministry, I think a lot of what I'm doing is online education at a seminary. So, DTS is in Dallas based, but only about a third of the students are in Dallas, and then another third are 100% online, and another third are kind of hybrid. They're at different extension sites in DC or Atlanta or all over. And so, we're constantly kind of in and out of online and offline. That's part of the reality of education. And if you think about what we're doing in school, if you were in college, for every hour you're in a classroom, embodied or whatever, you're spending about 2 hours doing some kind of homework. You're using the technology of the book to talk with dead guys, and so we like to think that education in a traditional sense is so much, it's embodied, that we're together, but really it's not. That's only a small part of what we do. And so we've had this big move to saying we had to do everything online. And we had a variety of professors, some who really love online, some who said, man, it could never be done. Like they said, my particular class just can't be done online. And it was really fun. I had tacos with the professor probably like March 1st, trying to say, hey, what if we tried something new this fall? And, he said, well, I just don't think this particular class, it's a public reading of scripture class. He goes, there's just no way I can do that online. But then when he was forced to do it online, with the coronavirus, now he's all excited about doing it a completely different way this fall. So similar to DJ, I think that sense of, once you experience something, that really changes your view. But beforehand, it's kind of just in an abstract. And so, now, like probably a lot of you guys, we do want to return to some physical gatherings in the fall, but there's just a lot of difficult leadership navigation things that we have to do. And we know that there's going to be people who are going to be pleased or displeased on either side. And I think, candidly, we're kind of grappling with the fact that, I kind of come from the world of evangelicals. And sadly, this situation kind of shows us two things about evangelicals. One of them is that they're the most resistant to saying that there is any kind of structural racism. So we're seeing that, really, really highlighted in our news media and in the stories and things that are happening in the world. But sadly, white evangelicals are the most likely to reject that. They're also the most likely to believe in kind of conspiracy theories and to reject things like wearing masks and stuff like that. So we're wrestling with what's deep in our theology that's causing that. There's so much right, I think, but there's also some areas where we really need to kind of re-examine and look at. And so this is a really great time for reflection. I think, like DJ said, that when you encounter a new technology or a new situation, it makes you go back and question what you really thought and what you believed, and whether or not what aspects of those were right. And so I'm actually having a great time really being able to rediscuss those things, and this gives us a chance to reflect and I think go deeper into who God is and what He's made us to be.
So cool. Thank you so much, John. Alberto?
Yeah, I guess this virus has made us all think, to rethink our whole lives. I think that it really has, as most of you have said, really changed our world and really accelerated the digital change. From our business perspective, we can say that many enterprises, many companies were interested in VR before this whole virus thing, but when we suddenly and no one can leave their homes, and everyone has to stay at home, and the only option you have to buy things is from your PC and your phone. Companies have really started to look at how to change things, how to digitally sell things. So it's really helped us as a business. We have now more projects than ever, but at the same time, it has showed us how we lost some things as people, as social beings. I think something from our local church have been really thinking is how we took for granted small things, like really physically being together to congregate and to pray from one from another, and holding each other. And it's something that's really made us think, and I think right now VR and these digital technologies have really showed us that we need connection. And I think things like this VR and Zoom and all of these technologies really help us erase some of the limits we have in our minds of how to connect with other people. Just when quarantine started in my country, I got messages from a couple of friends. They're not Christians, and they said, "I want to do a Bible study group. Can you help me?" So I coordinated with a couple of friends, and we started a little meeting between 5 people. And before we knew it, 3 weeks later, we had 50 people gathering on Zoom meetings all week, talking about Jesus, talking about praying for each other, and it was like an exponential growth. We got people all over from Latin America, even a couple from Africa and Asia, and it really showed me how, as a church, we can achieve a lot of things with this technology. If we really put our imagination and creativity in all of this. So I think this virus has helped us to really understand how far we can go, even, well, with this meeting. We're all from different countries, and we're really right here, we're connecting. So I think it's amazing what God might have for us, because well, as Leo introduced me, I'm really starting also to train to be a missionary. And I think of all the unreached people that really need to hear the gospel, and how there are now more than ever more possibilities to preach to them the gospel, how we can connect from all over the restricted countries. And I think it's a real challenge for us as a church to see how we can grow in this. So I think that's it.
So awesome. I love hearing from each of you. That's so cool. I think it's had positive and negative effects on everybody, but it's pretty amazing the fact that we're all able to be here, especially waving at Alberto from Costa Rica. Pretty powerful and innovative, and definitely feeling like you all are here with me in this space and having that sense of presence. Really, I don't know, it makes me feel close to you guys. I think it's a great feeling. Okay, let's move on to the next.
For a sec, before we move on to the just I don't know, just share my excitement with being with this company that I'm employed by right now. I know that Facebook has a lot of issues with politics and data handling and whatnot, but like the company itself is optimized around like connecting people. So like every decision that we make is people computing. And so I think as, ministry practitioners and as everybody stated here, like the opportunity is connecting people. And so I think it's this environment that we're in is for not just Facebook, for any and all digital services, like rushing us to do a better job at that. And there's so many innovations right now coming online. Like for instance, at Facebook, we have, I don't know if you've all heard of the portal. I have a portal screen here. I'm not on Zoom very much, but I'm on portal all day long. And portal is like an immersive 2D experience where I'm co-present, co-embodied with my team all day long. And I feel more connected to them than I did when I was physically with them. And I think that's the opportunity here with coronavirus, where if we can continue as innovators and practitioners lean into those things and take up that leadership to say, hey, this is important, and we'll probably have to do some hard work of like making the time to get people the tech, expending the expense to get people the devices, like you said, front end, like getting people headsets or getting your missionary friends all portals, and so you can pray for them and like feel embodied as you pray for them. Like this is an opportunity to like bring that connectiveness and like lean into it, right? So I just want to share, like I'm really excited about people powered computing, and I think now is a good time where as ministry practitioners and technologists we've got the opportunity there.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that through the portal how you're connecting with your team. I think that's so cool. Yeah, it's really neat. Okay, we've kind of, what do you think? We've come to our 45 minutes, but I would love maybe to try one more question. We can just go through it quickly because I think that this one is super exciting, and I know all of you have one thing in mind for sure. What the most inspiring kingdom opportunity that you have seen or can even just think of VR being used for. I know that you're all using it maybe for different things, but I think that the audience would be curious into the brain of a user, really what you could imagine for the future use of VR for the kingdom.
Want to go in order again or jump up?
Yeah, we can go in order again. And also, I think it'd be a cool idea if, Dylan, if you were to want to come up on the stage, I know it might look a little awkward for us in VR, but I'd love kind of a little close-up on each of the gentlemen as they share what they think.
Okay. Yeah, so I think you said it kind of in your preamble about the question, which was getting in the brain of the user. And I think that the biggest sort of most inspiring opportunity we have is reprogramming our brains, quite literally. I think, DJ could probably speak to this as a gamer perspective. I'm not a gamer, but like those who are, like, you likely are dreaming of those spaces because your brain thinks you've actually been there, right? And so for me, the biggest sort of opportunity we have is in my work at Oculus focus on too, which is a lot of like training and education, and we're seeing like incredible leaps and bounds progress in training and facilitating businesses to bring employees up to speed. And so if you think about that from the ministry field standpoint, reducing costs for, getting people trained to do something. Quick example of this that I'm super inspired by is one of our clients, Walmart. Walmart did a program with, they use Oculus to train all their new employees. They do empathy training, do like functional training, but they did an active shooter simulation, which is sad that they had to do it. But if you think about the costs involved in simulating an active shooter thing with maybe actors or just watching a video that may not be effective, but if you're like in a situation where you have to see the cues and pick up and do something about it, well, they were putting employees for this, like did a situation in Florida successfully. And so that's an example of where, like, if you can go rehearse a situation, like say in the mission field, or like we're gonna, try to, disciple somebody, like, and practice it, your brain is creating, actions for how to do that. And so as disciple makers and evangelists, like, this is the opportunity, is to spatially, reprogram our brains so that we can learn languages better, we can learn vocabularies better, we can feel connected and have those opportunities. And so that's the most inspiring thing I think we can do. Yes, use the technology, but like lean in on like training, education, and reprogramming the brain, because it's so much easier to do in a spatial environment than it is in a 2D representation.
Yeah, I had a different script that didn't mean to do that. Let's throw this down here. It's sticky there, so I'm just going to have to hold on to it. But I had something else. But Mark, you sparked a thought, and that's like the idea of like imprinting on the brain. So one quick story: I took my son to go see LeBron play one time, and another buddy of mine was there, and LeBron was warming up, and I looked at my friend and I said, "Yeah, I've seen LeBron warm up before. I've seen him play." And it was about 5 or 10 seconds later, I turned and I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. No, I saw him in VR." Play and practice before, but the way it imprinted on my brain was that I had experienced this before. So that's fascinating. So then now translate that to ministry, where when we do sermons, we don't do sermons on the stage. We actually build environments. If we're walking through the Red Sea, we'll actually do that. We were just going through the book of Acts, and in Acts chapter 27, there's a shipwreck, and we walked on the ship, and there's animated rain effects. And so what I think we're discovering is that tactile experience from a sermon is spiritually impacting people in a different way. And we haven't done like a Malcolm Gladwell study deep dive into the psychology of what's happening in our church, but I would argue that there's some significant spiritual growth happening for baby Christians, accelerated almost, because of the tactile natures of the scriptures. So they're able to experience the scriptures, and I think it imprints them on a different way. And it's fascinating to watch. And so I think that's what's most exciting. I think we're just discovering that that's even a thing, and we haven't even fully unpacked that. And so I think we're just going to continue to pursue that, like to see this spiritual growth happening, and what does that look like in VR and in the physical. And then the other thing real quick about what has just impacted us is just the nature of this technology for people who are atheist or agnostic or far from God, are just easily able to come into our ministry or into our church and just check it out. Because there is an intimidation barrier. If we said, okay, go to that physical church over there, and it could be the greatest church, most warming, welcoming, but just culturally speaking, there is an intimidation barrier to get through. And so for us, that intimidation barrier is down, and people are able to come in and experience what God has for them. So those are some thoughts about that.
Awesome.
Oh, those are great, guys. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things you've already mentioned, like with active shooter, I think the other area you see a lot of is, therapies where people are able to overcome fear of spiders or heights, all those things. So I think the therapy world, we have a, counseling degree where I'm from. So I think that therapy's there. And I think all the things DJ mentioned about, I think the last time I was at his church, he had built a whole boat to teach about Acts, and that journey. And it was just really a great experience, but also those side conversations that can happen there that can't really happen in Zoom or, like I said, on Facebook. So I think those are all, really strong. I think, we've probably all seen, the research too that would say that oftentimes because of the spatial things, women tend to feel less comfortable in VR. So I think there's a real chance for the church to lead in that and to be welcoming our sisters into spaces and saying this is a safe place and you won't be mistreated in the way that you might be treated somewhere else, because often church is not a safe place for women or for minorities, and to do that in the way that DJ's made his church be radically inclusive is a real opportunity there to say this is something safe. And then, like I said, I think there's also just a real opportunity. The way I often would say it is, I would challenge someone to say, can you describe the sound of a tuba to someone that's never heard it? Can you write that down, or can you say it words? And they would usually say no. So I'd say, yeah, that's what VR is. You need to experience it to really get it. It's a kind of tacit knowledge that you need to have done to really get. And then once you have that, then I think there's all these wonderful reflections that we can have on, say, like the word present. Like, what does it mean for God to be present and to be omnipresent? What does it mean for us to be present? I mean, we've all been physically next to somebody who really wasn't there, right? And we've all been online with somebody that we really felt a deep connection to. And so I think we're past the kinds of questions like, is online church real? You know, are our relationships real? I think we're past that because, or are we embodied? You know, all of us are probably, we're sitting on a chair somewhere. We have bodies, we have hands, we have faces. We're never disembodied. That's a completely made up thing. We're always embodied, but the way that we're embodied really affects us a lot and the kinds of experiences we have. So I think we want to be reflecting on what really is the value of physical proximity and what is the value of mediated proximity. So even I think in the New Testament, we see the authors wrestling with this of Paul saying, I really want to come to you, but sometimes it's better to write a letter. And Peter saying the same thing. I got Paul's letter and it was super confusing. I don't get it. And so they're wrestling with mediated and non-mediated forms of being together. So this idea that there's a universal church, the church broadly, and then there's also sort of local gatherings. We need to keep pressing into that and allowing these experiences and the presence of the Spirit to really teach us new things. So that's what I'm probably most excited about is us to have a richer and deeper understanding of presence and who we are and who God is.
Oh, that's a really interesting thought about the idea of presence that is really experienced in the VR space. And I've never even really thought of it that way. Thank you for that, John. That's awesome.
Sure.
Alberto, what do you think?
Well, I think we have to see VR as something that really gives us the opportunity to tell stories as we until now as a civilization we can have. I think it's a beautiful opportunity we have to tell our stories and God's story from the experience we had at Chile. It was really amazing to see how we could transport people to the least reached, and the videos, they were about Middle East and missionaries that worked there, but the audio was the testimony of a real worker that's serving there. And I remember distinctively like 5 girls especially that they saw the video and they cried because they really that's what they saw, what they experienced was just what they were praying for. They saw that they can go to serve in God and at a faraway place. And that's something that really changed me. Like, I wasn't prepared for that. I was prepared for a lot of things at that conference. That was in February. It was just before all the quarantine and all the virus were coming, and we were always cleaning the headsets. But I wasn't prepared to see the emotional response of these people. That they really see the people they were praying for, the places they were envisioning to serve the Lord. And I think that's our biggest opportunity. I also think it's, as DJ said, something that really helps us to tell the story of God in a whole new way. I remember a couple of years ago that I was playing Pokemon Go and I was walking down the street and I was looking at the Pokemon in augmented reality, and I was meditating on my devotional. That day I was reading Ezekiel, the one at the beginning where Ezekiel had this great vision of God, and I was thinking that would be like really hard to see. And then I had this game in augmented reality, and I just connected both ideas, and I said, well, it would be interesting to see what I've been reading on the Bible with a headset, and it's really not that hard, and it's something that's really been on my mind. We've from this experience in Chile, we've been starting to talk with Wycliffe Latin America, and we're starting a project like this. We're trying to find a way to like show the Bible in VR, like the Bible Project from YouTube, a version like that from VR. And I think that's really interesting to really see how we can tell our personal stories, our testimonies, how God has changed us, and we can show people in a first-person experience the Bible story. So I think it's an amazing opportunity we have.
It's so awesome. Yeah. I completely agree with all of you gentlemen, and honestly, I'm excited to continue conversations like this just more in the future. I think that there are probably a bunch of people in our Zoom link also who would love to continue these conversations with you gentlemen. I figured now is probably a good opportunity for me to go engage with them a little bit, and also for us to kind of split up into what could be little discussion groups. I know we ran over a little bit on time for the panel questions, but I know that we all value hearing from you gentlemen so much that I think it was probably worth the time. And yeah, just thank you so much for sharing. We'll skip over kind of the last question we had in mind and direct attention to kind of how we were thinking of doing breakouts. DJ, I'd love if you wanted to maybe grab some of the people here in all space and head to the back kind of courtyard and lead discussion. Sure. I can be back there with you momentarily and be able to talk and meet everybody. And then John Dyer, if you wanted to maybe stay here in and around the stage, Dylan, our cameraman, is going to cut the cameras and we'll be able to do breakouts in Zoom where James Kelly, Mark, and Alberto will all be kind of taking off their headsets and joining the Zoom gathering. So we will see everyone in Zoom in just a few minutes. I'd love to greet you all, and I'll make sure to give everybody emails in that chat for all of the panel members here as we had planned. But yeah, let's go ahead and do that. And I guess we'll give you a big virtual applause here to the panelists. Thank you so much for sharing.